What up? What up? Welcome in Monday Live. Jason Priester, allclemsontigers.com, part of the Clemson Maven multimedia platform. Apologies for the voice. Been a little under the weather a few days. Kind of mostly back now. The voice, that is. Pardon me. Just having I'm mostly back, having a hard time getting over this last little hump, but back with you tonight, Monday night, as always. Appreciate you tuning in. Um, the original plan was for me to be at practice Friday, then Monday, or this afternoon, and we have a lot to talk about tonight. But unfortunately, I've been at home, man. I haven't been there. I was not there Friday. I was planning on going today. Woke up this morning. I'm still not quite there, so I didn't go today either. But that's okay, man. My colleague Brad Sinkif was there. I got a pretty good read on some things. Not a whole lot to glean, man. His biggest takeaway was that, I think came from the receivers. That it was a Adam Randall, Antonio Williams, Bo Collins, and then there's a pretty significant gap to the rest of the guys. So that kind of reinforces what we talked about last week, week before last, week before that. You got to keep those guys healthy, man. You got to keep those guys have got to be healthy for you, or you're going to be in trouble. So nothing earth shattering coming out of fall camp so far. Media is not allowed back in to view practice again until Thursday. I am 99.99999% positive I'll be back by then. I have every intention on being back up there tomorrow. But this time yesterday, I had every intention on being up there today, too. So we'll see what happens. Still a lot of realignment talk going on. A lot of realignments taking place since we last met here last week. The biggest, Oregon and Washington to the Big Ten. I don't think that move caught anybody by surprise. The Pac-12 is. You want to know what the ACC is going to look like in 10 years? Look at the Pac-12 right now. That's kind of what it's coming down to. But kind of leaves the ACC on the clock. A bunch of these Pac-12 schools going to end up in the Big 12, which as much as the Big 12 wants to be, they're not going to be one of the Big Two, man. They're going to be that third conference, but they're going to be a significant drop off between the Big 10, SEC, and then the Big 12. Seeing some chatter about California and Stanford coming to the ACC, and I that makes absolutely no sense to me. You bring those two schools in as equals partners, you are losing money. That you can't. What you pay out, what you see school like Clemson made close to $40 million last year. You bring in those two schools as full partners, Clemson ain't making $40 million. They're going to make less than that if they're getting an equal piece of the pie. It does not make any sense. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Maybe if you bring them in as, at a partial revenue share or whatever, you can work out the math somehow. But I don't know how Clemson, Florida State, and the schools that are unhappy right now could really be on board with something like this. We'll know soon enough, but I have a hard time buying this is going to happen. I don't think this is anything more than just talk at this point. Is Stellato working hard to try to get back? I keep seeing two stories that include about that, including Dabo's comments. Now he's got another. Yeah, hey man, that hamstring's acting up on him again. Hey, some guys are snake bitten. Don't ever, just can't ever get over it. Maybe he's one of those guys. I don't know. I can't tell you how hard he's working or anything. I'm not there every day. I haven't heard anything disparaging about him or that he's not. Um, listening to Dabo talk the other day, you can't make a plan where you're counting on that guy, man. He's not shown the ability to give you any confidence that he's going to be available. Um, until he shows you something, you got to make a plan. You got to make a plan that does not include him. So I kind of see where Dabo's coming from in that regard. Um, it's just it is what it is. What I've said all along, I think Tyler Brown's going to have an impact on this offense this year. Whether Stellato's healthy or not, I think Brown's that kind of guy. No, he's not wasn't some 5-star talent. But man, he's got speed. He's a lot of different ways you could use him. Man, he's your prototypical slot guy, and he can move. So it's not like you know Clemson's in as bad of shape there as they were in the past. So I mean, Stellato either gets healthy or he doesn't. Man, this is not the first time he's had hamstring issues. So we just have to see what happens. See, I can't stand. I part of me thinks he was. I think most 99% of some of the 99% of the things Dabo says, um, there's some kind of motivational reason behind it. Like I said, I've not heard anything bad about Stellato or his work ethic or anything like that. Um, I'm sure it is frustrating for a guy. That guy's talented, man. He was talented coming out of high school. Um, there's a lot of teams in on that kid. A lot of teams wanted him. I'm sure it's frustrating that they've not been able to keep him healthy. It just I'm sure he is challenging him. Maybe they think there's more he can do. I don't know. I'm not in that locker room, so I can't really answer that. And I'm not sitting here calling him weak that he can't play when he's got a cracked fingernail. I don't. I think people jump to conclusions on those kind of things, man. Kid tore ACL last year, and definitely can't play on that. Um, and like I said a minute ago, he's had hamstring issues. Anybody that's dealt with a bum hamstring knows it's hard to come back from. And some guys don't. Some guys have once they have hamstring issues, they don't ever fully get over them. Maybe he's one of those guys. I don't know. Again, I don't think you haven't had him for 2 years. Not having him now is not some big time loss. No, I don't see. To me, whatever you get out of him is an added bonus at this point. You got multiple guys you can run out there in the slot, and anything you get from him is just icing on the cake. Keep seeing folks talk about ESPN redoing the grant of rights. Yeah, the grant of rights is an agreement between the ACC schools, yeah, that bounds that gives the ACC the exclusive access to every school's media rights through 2037. That means if Clemson or Florida State or whoever were to left tomorrow and went and signed with the Big Ten, and they'd still owe that TV money, and theoretically to the ACC. It's not at some set value or cap value. I mean, it's all media rights for home games. If you add up, like I said a minute ago, Clemson got close to $40 million last year. There's 13 years left on that thing. You multiply 13 times 40. That's how many millions of dollars it's going to take to get out, plus the buyout. Theoretically, I mean, everything's a negotiation. But yeah, that is an ACC thing, the grant of rights. ESPN pays the ACC for the media rights, and the ACC distributes that money they're paid equally to the schools in the conference. But make no mistake, a lot of this realignment is being driven by the networks, man. ESPN and Fox haven't played a heavy hand in this. The networks played a big role in the demise of the Pac-12 last week. Make no mistake. Hey, before we get started, real good here, I have to remind everybody, don't forget, hit that subscribe button, man. We was digging into some numbers the other night, and 59% of our views come from people that are not subscribed to this channel, man. So we would very much appreciate it. Anybody that's not subscribed, just take 1 second, hit that subscribe button. Don't forget, check us out, allclemsontigers.com. Let's see. It's really surprising that Clemson and the ACC would sign up for this grant of rights contract. At the time, it was not very surprising. The league wanted stability. They wanted their network on the air. Maryland had not long left and got out very cheap. So at the time, it did not seem as detrimental as it is right now. So, I mean, every school signed it. Every school. And nobody was forced into signing anything, some things work out, some things don't. But the ACC needed to get their network on the air, and this was the only way that was happening. Otherwise, ESPN was not going to do it. The ACC was victimized, not victimized, that's not the right word, but had the bad fortune of having leadership that was far more reactive than proactive. I'm not saying they were never proactive, but more often than not, they were reactive rather than proactive. Didn't kind of have the foresight to see how this team was going to play out. Focused on basketball over football for far too long. It just, in my opinion, not the greatest leadership when it comes to running the league. That's just me. Now you got a new guy, a new commissioner, and I know he catches a lot of hell online and from the fans and stuff, but man, he was put between a rock and a hard place when he took this job. There ain't a whole lot he can do. His hands is tied. There's nobody out there to add that's going to add value to your league. Notre Dame's not joining anyway. No way, no how, no shape or form. And they were never planning on joining. They're never going to join. A time will come when their hand will be forced into joining a conference, but it won't be the ACC. You know, people do crazy things when they want that kind of stability. So again, Maryland got out on the cheap, man, and then they made sure that nobody was getting out on the cheap again. Seems to me ESPN has been further demoted into TV power structure with the B1G expansion and the three networks traveling. Yeah, I agree, man. And ESPN's hemorrhaging money. So look at all the people they've had to fire. Um, you see all this money they've paid out in these big television contracts over the past 10, 15, 20 years, and you wonder when that bubble's going to burst. And now that they see their subscriber numbers just keep plummeting and keep plummeting because obviously everybody's moving to streaming and all that stuff. People's moving away from cable boxes and subscriptions. They want to pick and choose what they can watch, and ESPN can't you know demand what they used to demand from cable and satellite companies when they can bundle in the way they used to bundle them things together. It's not working like that for no more, and then they're not making the money they used to make. Fox and the Big Ten have made some power moves here. Absolutely. Any word on how Cade is looking so far? I haven't heard much of anything. I've not either. I've again, man, I've not been there either day, so I can't tell you anything I've seen. Um, I would say no. If you're not hearing anything, to me, that's probably good. If he was not performing well, it would absolutely be a story by now because there are enough eyeballs out there. You'd hear about it. Promise you that. Cal and Stanford had nothing in football. Cal and Stanford had, all due respect to Cal and Stanford, but they don't add anything of value. There's no, they're you're taking a hit money wise if you bring those guys in as full revenue partners, man. I don't think there's any teeth to this thing. The clip on Jarvis Green makes him look ready to go, not just bigger, but really. Hey, Jarvis Green, I always say it was fairly underrated. You ask everybody last year why that the guy doesn't have a Power Five offer, and nobody can really give you a straight answer. I have people guess maybe he's you know looked at as a little undersized and not holding. I don't know, man, not holding a lot of weight. I had somebody guess that might be a reason. Nobody could give you an actual reason why he wasn't getting the looks from the Power Five teams. Because the kid didn't do nothing but make plays in high school, not just his senior year, I mean, his whole career. I mean, he put up eye popping numbers. I went and watched him live. And I mean, the kid's legit. I mean, he's got great field vision. He's not a third down back by any stretch. I would you can you can run him out there on any down, and yeah, he looks ready to roll. Um, if there's one of those backs that's going to redshirt this year, I would assume it's going to be Haynes because he still needs to add a little bit more bulk. I think he was still well under 200 pounds. He's probably going to need a year in a power hour or whatever. Somebody said, long sleeves. No fever today, man. I've been fever free for a few days now. My wife and kids they keep it cold as hell in my house. I wear long sleeves all the time. I get cold easy. So I wear long sleeves sometimes, even when I'm fully healthy. Anything new with recruiting? Not really. Elijah Thurman. released his top 7 or what 8 or whatever it was yesterday. Clemson was in it, but that was expected. Not really. We in a dead period right now. Things will pick back up when the season starts. Kids start taking visits again. Obviously, offensive line's the position to watch pretty much the rest of the way. Still need another end and another linebacker. But you really need a couple of solid offensive linemen. If the ACC adds Coastal and Stanford now or a little later, to me it looks more like a move to try and survive after Clemson and FSU move on. I thought about that too, but you start adding schools, that kind of opens things up, makes it easier for Clemson and Florida State to leave. The way I understand it, anyways. I don't know. All I've really seen is the tweet that Pete Thamel put out earlier. Clemson, Florida. You trading Clemson and Florida State for Cal and Stanford. You. I don't know, man. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me either. But I did that. That did cross. That is something I considered too. I wondered about that. I'm not sure how that would work though. If I heard anything about the ACC and SEC merging, no. I heard again over the weekend that when the SEC decides to expand next, it will probably be into North Carolina and Virginia, and possibly up to 4 schools out of those states. Um, you know, that is what I heard again this weekend. I ain't heard that. I would not expect the SEC and the ACC to merge outright though. A lot of politics involved. South Carolina will be dead set against the Clemson move to the SEC. Florida will be dead set against the Florida State move. Georgia Tech, Georgia would probably be less opposed to a Georgia Tech move, but maybe still opposed a little bit. There's a handshake agreement with all those schools, man. They got the votes to keep the school out if they want to. Um, and I know Texas A&M got in over Texas. Again, I've talked about it on here before. I was told do not expect that to be a precedent setter. That handshake agreement is very much still in effect. If they add, does it break the grant of rights? See, it opens that's the question. It absolutely would open up your set. It would open up to giving you a new television contract, which would, and the way I understand it, open up the grant of rights again to new negotiations. I mean, maybe I'm way off on that, but that's the way I understand it, anyways. Um, that's why I'm not putting a whole lot of stock into this, man. Any insider tidbits or anything, anybody's again, I've not been there. If you missed the beginning, I've been sick for about a week now. And I'm not somebody that gets sick very often. Whatever I've had, it knocked me off my feet for a few days, and I'm just getting over it. My colleague Brad Sinkiff was there today. Zach was there Friday. Brad told me today that the biggest thing that stood out to him was the gap between the top three wide receivers, Antonio Williams, Bo Collins, and Adam Randall. The gap between those three guys and the next guys on the depth chart. He says it's very very apparent. Said the kicking was consistent today. Robert Gunn and Quia Kastner both made all of their field goal attempts during the early drills. The longest ones were 37 yards. Will Shipley, Tyler Brown, Antonio Williams worked as the punt returners. Several NFL scouts in attendance today. Scouts from the Ravens, the Lions, the Rams. Bunch of guys rotating in on second team defense. Peter Woods, Peyton Page, Wade Woodaz, because Clemson's been running a lot of nickel, due to the linebacker depth, which, Clemson's going to run a lot of nickel anyways, but with their depth issues at linebacker, maybe even a little more so now. But Cooper run out there today first in nickel, so that means Wade Woodaz is off the field, and you got Carter and Trotter as your linebackers. So Wade Woodaz was worked in, rotating in and out. Freshman Shelton Lewis was one of those guys rotating in with the second team. DeMonte Capehart, another freshman, Khalil Barnes. First team defense was, XT, Rook, Tyler Davis, and Maskell. Then Trotter and Carter. Makuba at the nickel. Sheridan Jones, Nate Wiggins at corner. RJ Mickens, Jalen Phillips at safety. And Brandon Spector was in yellow today, non-contact, along with Stellato and Miles Oliver. That was what stood out to him today. How do you see the FSU Clemson game going? That's going to be a big one, man. I think that's a game Florida State's got circled on their calendar. At the ACC kickoff week 4 last, Florida State was very good, very deliberate about making sure they didn't say anything. They didn't give Clemson any kind of bulletin board material. It was kind of refreshing to listen to Jared Verse, defensive end for the Seminoles, speak. He talked about how they still have some things to prove. They're not back yet. They need to go out and do it on the field, despite all the offseason hype. But they've added some talent to that team through the portal. And that's going to be a good football team. Having said all that, I'm not buying this hype that they're one of the best teams in the country yet. I want to see it first. I think that's a huge game for them in the season opener against LSU. I think they have to win that game if they want to have the type of season that they want to have. And don't get me wrong, you can lose the opener and go on and run the table and get in the playoff and all that. But losing in the opener against LSU would make that an extremely difficult path, especially seeing you got to come to Clemson and you could potentially have to play Clemson twice. That's a huge game for for Florida State. And I'm curious to see how a team that is built heavily through the portal will respond if they drop that game. It'll be interesting to see what happens if they were to drop that game, especially if they drop that game, then come to Clemson and lose, and they're sitting there 2-2 when everybody, has hyped them up since the end of last season. Um, if you look at Mike Norvell's record throughout his head coaching career, I think he's got one win versus a ranked opponent. You know, in his career or something like that. It's not very good. He doesn't. It's not. You know, he's assembled a great team. Now it's time to see if that translates to on the field results. But I think that Florida State Clemson game is a game that Florida State's got circled on the calendar. Um, Clemson kind of went in there and put their foot on their throat early in that game in Tallahassee last year. He went up on them big, then kind of took their foot off the gas and let Florida State come back. Florida State almost, came all the way back. I think they got a lot of confidence off of what they did in that second half against Clemson last year, and I think they've had that game circle for a while. Should be a good one. Still leaning Big Ten. They talked about going 10 league games. The South Carolina game go by wayside if Clemson joins the Big Ten. I don't. If Clemson joins the Big Ten, I don't think. I think everything's on the table as a possibility. I mean, we've already seen many rivalry games lost to this realignment, man, and this is another one that could end up going by the wayside at some point. So it wouldn't shock me if that were to happen. I think they would do whatever they could to save it. Um, Clemson already plays a FCS school and a G5 school every year. A move to the Big Ten would automatically mean you're no longer playing FCS schools because Big Ten don't schedule FCS schools. So that gives you room right there for an extra conference game. You take that G5 school off, man, that gives you another more room for an extra conference game. I think Clemson would. I think the South Carolina game would be the last one to be dropped. They do whatever they could to hold on to that thing, but there's nothing would surprise me anymore. It's all about money now, tradition, rivalries, geographics, all that. None of that. It's all taking a back seat to the money. And keeping up with the Joneses and not getting left behind. I like the idea of Tyler Brown being a returner to keep Shipley as healthy as possible. Yeah, I like that too. He's got natural ability too. I've not seen him field punts or return punts yet, but I think he's that guy that can excel in that role. Um, I wouldn't mind seeing him win that job. He's a threat to take it to the house anytime he touches the ball. He's got that kind of speed. Man, I'm just ready for some football to start so we can quit talking about this realignment junk for a little while. I get tired of talking about realignment too sometimes, man. You be when this stuff heats up, man, my phone starts blowing up. I have to leave my phone on mute 99% of the time. It drives my wife crazy because it might take me 10 or 15 minutes to see something when she texts me. But what really drives me crazy though is when people start texting me about realignment crap, and realignment's not even in the news, man. It's afterthought. Nobody's even talking about it. Some people it's on their mind 24/7. But yeah, I'm like you. I'm ready for the season to start. I'm ready for the talking season to be over. I'm ready for all the dominoes to fall wherever. Let them fall. Let the chips fall where they may, and wherever you end up, you end up. I oh, I forgot what I was going to say there. Telling you, I am not all the way back. It's the Stellato's dealing with a hamstring again. Not the first time he's dealt with a hammy. I don't know how serious it is. I don't know if it's minor or major. Dabo touched on it the other day, talking about how they're. I can't remember exactly how he said it, but they're not planning on depending on him. And he's been there long enough now that shouldn't surprise anybody. You can't go into a season depending on that guy. You need to make a alternative plan, and anything you get from him is kind of icing on the cake, if anything at all. We've seen guys that can't stay healthy, especially hamstrings can be tricky. Um, I just don't know. But again, now Antonio Williams is your starter in the slot, anyways. Even though Stellato can play outside too, but Clemson's got more options now than they've had. Got to keep them healthy, but they got more options right now than they had last year before last. Tyler Brown, you can rely on, you can roll out Brandon Spector out there, and he can give you some snaps there. You got some options, but Antonio Williams is going to be your guy there no matter what, assuming he stays healthy. All right. Again, before I bounce out of here, I think I'm fixing to feel like my voice is getting weaker as we go on. Mind everybody again, if you have not subscribed to the channel, we would very much appreciate you clicking on that little button down there under the video. We're trying to hit that 1,000 mark. We're getting there slowly but surely. Any support will be greatly appreciated. Excuse me. Be on the lookout for our next show, big live show, and later this month. It's going to be live from Alumni Hall. I'm trying to remember the date, and I want to say it. Telling you, man, my brain just ain't working. Want to say it might be on the 16th. Let me pull my calendar up here. No, 23rd. 23rd. August 23rd, 6 p.m., Alumni Hall. We'll all be live out there previewing the season. That on your calendar. And I very much appreciate all y'all tuning in. I will be back next Monday, 7 p.m., with more to talk about with what I've seen with my own eyeballs. But again, I had a lot more planned for this thing tonight, but life comes at you sometimes and throws you a curveball, and there ain't nothing you can do about it. Apologies. I will do what I can to have more next week. Ted says Clemson and FSU will end up in the SEC. Markets don't matter as much as viewership. Wait and see. We'll see. Even though everything Clemson's done in the past 24 months screams Big Ten, the SEC does not even support one of Clemson's most storied programs in men's soccer. We'll see. I don't know how it's going to play out, but I know behind the scenes which way it's looking, and it ain't looking that way. I know people don't want to hear that. That's just the way it looks to me right now, and it's not just me either. There's a lot of people think that. Next Monday, 7 p.m. Same bat time, same bat channel. See y'all then.